Alright guys, so now I have about 3 to 4 coats of this new paint, and as you can tell, it definitely matches a lot better with the original color of the car. And you can sort of see that the old Fender was darker compared to this new color. I actually did some more research, and it turns out that the color of the primer doesn't really make a difference if you have enough coverage over the primer. Another thing to note is that if you do get any scratches and the primer shows underneath it, probably better to use a lighter primer with lighter color paints and a darker primer with darker color paints. So in my case, it's not that ideal because the primer is actually black and the car has a really light color, so if this Fender were to get scratches in it, the primer might show up. But I guess the best way I can keep that from happening is to put as many layers of clear on it as I possibly can. So I'm gonna try and put 5 layers of clear on this so that it really protects the paint underneath it. Some people were asking about the scratches in the original Fender, so you can kind of see them here. If I show you closely, you'll be able to see that there's scratches all throughout the Fender, which is definitely something that isn't good. Another thing you might notice is that there's bends and dents into the old Fender as well. So this new Fender should definitely come out looking a lot better than the old one. So with the old Fender, what I went with was Duplicolor acrylic lacquer clear coat, and I'm going to be using the same one for this new Fender because the finish came out really nice on the old one. And I'll show you guys the process as I'm clearing it. So after you let this sit for a while, you might imagine that it's going to get dusty and there's going to be little imperfections here and there from dust falling on it. So definitely just make sure that you wipe it off real quick, but I've read online not to sand after the base coat, so I'm gonna listen to what I read online and I'm not gonna sand this. I'm just gonna go straight to the clear. Alright, it's time for the second layer, and the second layer goes on nice, smooth, even, really slowly. Not really slowly, but just enough so that you get complete coverage. This is a really wet coat. You want to overlap the strokes by about 50% so that there's no areas where you can actually see the dusting. Make sure that you hit at it from a bunch of different angles so that there's no areas that you're missing. Commonly, if you just always spray in the same direction, every time there's an angle, you're not going to get a good coverage. So make sure that you spray it from the top, from the bottom, from all different sides. After you spray on a really thick coat, you should be able to see what it looks like later on before the buff and shine. As you can see my reflection, and that's the kind of finish that you want at this point, especially when it's wet. When it dries off a little bit, it'll look a little less shiny, but that's where the buffing and polishing is going to come in, and that's really what's going to set off the paint. You can already see that there's some orange peel, and that's totally fine. The whole purpose of the buffing and shining is going to be to get rid of all these little imperfections and to really have a mirror-like finish. This project is coming out really nice, and I'm really happy with it so far. Between the coats, I basically just wait about 5 minutes, and then I put on another coat, and I'll basically do it until this completely runs out. Look right there, you can see exactly how shiny it is after the clear coat. And when it's still wet, you want it to be this shiny. And just don't worry about the waviness right now, because later on we're going to be buffing and polishing this. It's going to be looking really good. So now the only thing that I'm worried about is that every so often there's like a little bit of dust that gets on this between the clear coats. And what I'm worried about is that later when I buff and polish, this will actually rip off some of the clear coat with it. I don't know if you guys can see that, but let me know what I should do, if I should get rid of these specks before laying down a final layer of clear, or if it's alright to be buffed and polished out later on. I definitely don't want these imperfections showing up in the paint after I'm all done. So thank you guys for keeping up and for watching. As always, if you guys have any questions, please leave it in the comments below.
And I'll see you guys in the next episode where I might be either removing these and re-clearing it, or I'll be at the stage of buffing and polishing. See you guys.